God, what just happened? Good morning. Want to take your best guess? A, B, or C, or D? Good morning, Aaliyah. What do you think the unpleasant act that Brian did was at the end of chapter 12? Now, if you read, you know. But if not, you're taking a wild guess. D. Okay, that's your wild guess. Clean up blood wounds. Okay. See, urine and feces. I mean, debatable. What do you think, Aaliyah? You got your tea this morning, Lady E? Look, I even got my Batman cup out today. Haha. This is mine, it's my brother's, but I needed a cup. Good morning, good morning. You think D? Blood? Yeah. I mean, even thinking of D though, like I think about like why I couldn't be a doctor. Just the sight of blood just kind of makes me a little bit queasy. So even if like Derek had, got really severely injured and it was like blood everywhere, I think I would panic. I would go into like a panic attack. Oh, I know. Is it on now? No, it's about to be on. Let me record it. Oh, thank you for the reminder. I recorded. WDCA. WDCA. Ha! I caught it just in time. I was able to go ahead and hit record real quick. Oh, man. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. So, Aaliyah, I know your other classmates will join us soon. They'll join us shortly. The question becomes... Sorry, I'm texting sideways that class has started to your classmates. Send. Uh-oh. Yeah, sorry. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go through our lesson because I don't want to hold us up, and I do want us to get through both chapters 13 and 14 today. That way you won't have to worry about it tomorrow as much. So let's go ahead and look at that. I'm going to go ahead and start recording our session. All right. So what type of unpleasant act did Brian have to perform at the end of chapter 12? You are correct. It was C. He had to clean urine and he had to clean, good morning, Jelani. He had to clean urine and he had to clean feces, meaning poop or, your bowel movement off of Derek. So because we know at this point that Derek is paralyzed, so it's a bit difficult for him to do anything or move around. So just a quick reminder that this is the packet that we are working on today. Jelani and Aaliyah, can you give me a thumbs up if you have this packet? If you don't, I need to know, because you can pick it up from Baloo if you need it. And if you can't get to Baloo, I can also have it mailed. I'm actually going to have them all mailed to you all just as a backup as well. But I just want to know if you have the packet. If not, you just need some paper to write with for today. But remember, all of our recordings are on YouTube, so you can always go back and watch them again. Awesome. All right, so turn to page 8. We're going to pick up from page 8 today. So chapter 13 is where we're picking up. And we know that your homework was, what's going up? Wait a minute, there we go. Homework was chapter 12. You had at the very beginning just a word search itself with some of the words. So indication, literally, detached, partially, scheduled, flex, squelch, apparent, frustrate, procedure, coma, resentment, transpose, immense, and unconscious. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start class today with the actual quizzes. I thought it might be a little bit funner for us if we started class this way. So go ahead and go to joinmyquiz.com. We're going to play the game there. And when we're done, we're going to come back over here. So we're going to actually, good morning, Timothy. We're going to start class today with actually playing a quizzes. And then when we're done with our quizzes, we're going to come back here and actually then go through chapters 13 and 14. So go ahead and log on to joinmyquiz.com and I'm going to join you. So you should be logging on to quizzes. Join my quiz. We're going to start class today with a quick check-in and update. All right, we're waiting for the game to begin. And I'm going to go ahead and look to see if you are. It's only myself. Come on, join me. This is how I'm going to take attendance for today. And just to see if you've been reading. It's a quick check. It's not a grade. It's just a quick check to see and catch you up on the book if you haven't read. All right. I see Timothy. It's so good to see you, Timothy. I've been worried about you and been wondering how you've been doing. Let me pin the comment. There we go. Pin the comment. I'm going to give those of you that haven't signed on about another minute to join us. All right. I see Aaliyah. Let's see. Jelani, we're waiting on you. We want to make sure we get you in. Good morning, Ramonte. You know you're supposed to be with the 6th grade. I love seeing you. I'm going to give Jelani a few more seconds to go ahead and join us. And those of you that also just came into the room. Good morning, Torian. We're starting class with a quizzes just to, help you with you all's reading. just to see, what you know. So go ahead and join us. I'll wait. We're still waiting on Jelani to join us as well. So once you or Jelani join in, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, Mr. Turner. You can feel free to join us for a quiz as well if you like. Put this over in the corner. All right, I wanted to give Torian another second to join us. Torian and Jelani, once again, if you're just now joining us, we are doing a quizzes, so go ahead and make sure you log into the quizzes so we can go ahead and do our review. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll give it about 15 more seconds, and then we're going to go ahead and start because I'm excited. Anyone that comes late can just type in the code. All right, let's get started. Uh-oh. The code is 199365. It's up here at the top. 199365. Let's see how y'all are doing on this end. I'm going to take myself out. That way it's fair for you guys. Okay, Timothy's holding the lead. Aaliyah and Jelani battling for that second place spot. Surprised Torian didn't join us. Oh. It was upstairs. All right. Good job, Timothy. And good job, Aaliyah and Jelani, for joining. All right. I just kind of want to go over the questions real quick for you guys. So, because it's kind of a review of the book itself. So if you've been reading, great. If you haven't been reading, remember the readings are online for you, so you can go ahead and catch up. Remember, we are in week 2 of the reading, so you want to make sure you catch up so you don't fall too far behind. We knew that Brian knew that in 6 to 7 hours there would be rain, therefore they needed to find shelter. If the emergency supplies were unloaded, Brian predicted that they would use them because they had access to them, which is why he decided that they shouldn't have them and they shouldn't keep them. Third question, and Brian and Derek agreed to do what before sending the plane off? They grabbed the radio off the plane just in case they needed it, along with Derek's briefcase. Based off of Brian's previous experience in the wild, he knew that a fire was needed because the smoke would keep the mosquitoes away and from attacking them. Remember, he got bit up pretty bad the first go round. Out of all the supplies that were on the plane, Brian and Derek only had with them to survive were knives. They both had knives. At the end of chapter 10, a crisis struck Brian's camp, and that crisis that created a new tension, quote unquote, for their journey was a thunderstorm, which ended up lightning struck Derek and Brian. However, it paralyzed Derek and put him in a coma. What was Brian's motive for returning to the wilderness? Derek and the other guys had convinced him to help them learn survival skills for their training school by going back. What was Brian's first experience in the woods? Why was it so traumatic for his mom? It was traumatic for his mom because she thought that he was dead and that she would never see him again, right? And just to bring this to life for you all, tomorrow I'm going to post a video where I did an interview with Brian's mom, or as Brian's mom, to just give you some context. Which of the following items does Brian not need or have in the novel, The River, in order to survive? He does not have his hatchet. He has food, shelter, and water, but no hatchet. And lastly, which of the following was not Brian's response after he woke up? He did not consider that he was glad to be alone and he didn't have to take care of another person anymore. He did not feel that way. Okay, so that takes care of our game. Let us go back to our PowerPoint for today. So by now you should have completed a few things. We are officially done with Monday, where we read chapters 9 and 10. Tuesday, when we went live, we read chapter 11. And yesterday, you were supposed to read chapter 12, which was posted, and it was a 3-minute recording. Today, we are going to look at chapters 13 and 14. I thought I'd save you the trouble of tomorrow, and you'll just have to then focus on the letter home, okay? Now, keep in mind that our lessons are designed for you to spend about a good 30 minutes, probably, each day with your curriculum for ELA. You could technically knock it out in probably about 2.5 hours if you were to sit in one sitting at the beginning of the week. However, I designed them so that you do not have to spend more than about 30 minutes at most with your work, okay, completing the assignments, because the readings are all under 10 minutes, which is majority of the work, okay? Today, we're looking at chapters 13 and 14, and we're still looking at our same objective, which is to analyze the particular elements of the story and how they are shaped, how they develop, how the characters change, how the plot itself shifts, as well as how the setting is impacting how the character can actually interact in the story or in the plot itself, okay? So keeping in mind, we're still looking at our 3 highly effective strategies while we read. We know that this was our story chart from last week. So we added that he signaled for help using the radio, realized that it was broken. He checked Derek's heart rate to see if he was breathing or if he was alive. He panicked and thought that he might be dead like the pilot before. And now he has to come up with a plan or his next steps. And we're going to discuss what the consideration is for that today. So I know a few of you are just now joining us, so you did not see our summary last week. So we summarized chapter 11 on Tuesday and said that in chapter 11 of the novel, Brian awakes in the middle of the day only to discover that Derek's body is lying motionless. He is presumed dead. However, Brian isn't sure and checks his heartbeat and breathing. Eventually, he accepts that Derek is alive, however, paralyzed. Derek signals for help using the radio, only to realize that it too is broken. And without a way to reach the outside world, Brian knows he has to figure out a new way to save himself and Derek before it is too late. So this is where we left off on Tuesday. So today we're going to go ahead and pick up with page 8 in your packet. Remember, we're looking at week 5, and we are in term 4. So this is the second week of term 4. This term is going to go really fast, so you want to make sure that you keep up with it. We only have 6 weeks, so we are in the second week of our term, essentially, if you think about it in terms of work packets. So let us go ahead, and I'm going to move my screen up here, and we're going to read chapter 13. Remember, this is uploaded to YouTube, and it's also uploaded to Instagram so that you can go back and watch the series on the IGTV series. Okay? So, and I'll be stopping in along the way so we can discuss.
Somewhere, Brian thought, somewhere he'd heard something about comas. He must have, something more than he could remember. But it had to be in his mind, in his thinking, and if it was there, he must be able to get it out. He spent the morning trying to remember what he knew, but nothing came. It was like being asleep, except that you didn't wake up, he thought. Everything kept working, but you couldn't eat or drink. He had been moving from the lake to the shelter with a birch bark cone full of water when it hit him. They could wait all week, wait 9 or 10 days for the plane to come, or he could. He knew that people had gone that long without food. Derek would lose some weight, but he wouldn't starve to death in that time. But Brian was sure Derek could not go that long without water. 2, 3 days, maybe 4, then he would be in trouble. Somewhere he'd heard or read or seen that the human body couldn't go that long without water.
All right, so this is reading pretty fast. I didn't realize it. I'll make sure I slow it down next time. However, this is an important fact. Brian was sure that Derek could not go that long without water. So they could wait all week, 9 or 10 days for the plane to come back if he could. However, he can't do that without water. He would only then survive maybe 3-4 days at most without water before the body would then start to deteriorate or really become dehydrated. So we have to get water into him. However, keeping in mind that he's a bit paralyzed and in a coma as well.
It had already been 1 day, going on 2 days. He could try getting Derek to drink. If he could get water in him, he would last. His breathing had steadied still more, and his heart rate was close to normal. Brian had finally settled enough to measure it and calculate that it was running about 65 beats per minute. He remembered something about the rate supposing to be 72, so Derek was low, but it was still working all right. Brian made a small spoon-like holder out of birch bark. With this, he dipped water from the cone, which he had propped next to Derek's head, and he put a small bit of water into the unconscious man's mouth. The effect was immediate and explosive. Derek choked instantly, and the reflex action took over, and he coughed, spraying water and spit in Brian's face. The choking continued, and Brian frantically pulled Derek's head over to the side, held his face down, and pounded on his back, all he knew to do. It seemed to last forever, and Brian was terrified that he'd killed Derek.
So at this point, he attempted to give Brian some water. However, Brian is choking on the water. Because remember, like we said, he's kind of paralyzed or in a bit of a coma. So it's not like he can get his body to function the way that he would need it to function. So, your body needs to be able to still move, water, and, your mouth still needs to be able to chew. In the event that you don't, then if I go to try to feed you or give you water, then you would choke because your body is not being able to move the muscles and things that it needs in order to process that, food and or drink.
One thing wrong, and he was choking to death. But finally the water cleared from Derek's throat and the coughing stopped, though his breathing was still ragged. So you can't drink. Brian settled Derek's head back onto the rolled-up jacket. That doesn't make all this any easier. At first he felt strange talking to Derek when there was no other reading a story in the paper about a girl that had been in a coma for months. Please, he thought, dear God, don't let Derek be under that long. And when she recovered, she said that while she was in the coma, she could hear people talking. She could hear and understand, but could not answer. And he thought Derek might be the same. Derek? He leaned close to Derek's face. Can you hear me? There was no sign. Can you move your eyelids? If you hear me, move your eyelids. Nothing. The eyes were half open, filled with tears that came constantly. Apparently the body was trying to keep them from drying out because Derek could not blink. He sat up, then stood and looked at the sky. I can't do this, he thought. I can't do this alone. I just can't. He looked down at Derek again, shook his head. I don't know what to do. And he realized then that he was wrong. It wasn't like last time. He wasn't alone. There was Derek. Maybe if he talked to him, spoke aloud to him, maybe it might help. Here it is, Brian said, squatting again.
All right, so I kind of want to pause here. This is a very important part. So this entire time they've been in the woods, we know that Brian complained of there not being any tension, there not being any problems, and to a certain degree, Brian has almost treated it as if he was expecting to experience the same thing that he did the first round, however, with more knowledge this round and less equipment than before. However, we've now reached this point, what's known as an epiphany, right? It's like an aha moment. So at this moment, Derek is in a coma and Brian has this epiphany like, oh my goodness, no longer am I in the woods by myself and I only have to take care of myself. I now have to also take care of another human being, right? So we have to question why Gary Paulsen, the author himself, would then choose to add this type of tension to the story, right? So in looking at it and looking at this epiphany, it's showing how Brian is developing as a character. Okay, so he went from being a loner, he went from being insecure, lacking confidence, lacking knowledge, to now this skilled survivor of the wilderness. However, now he is back to square one of vulnerability, and he is back to the point where he is incapable of understanding everything that the wilderness has in store. And in this case, he's almost back to square root one with trying to help save someone else's life and not knowing how to do it. So now he does not have the knowledge or the skill set to save another life. However, he has the skill set to survive the wilderness as one person. So now Gary Paulsen has added this new layer, which is the part about why I wanted to point out this epiphany, but this is the new layer, which is making this a little bit more complex as it relates to the plot itself. So adding in this new layer helps to push the story forward. Okay, this is what we needed in order to push the story forward. All right, let's continue.
I'm a stick in the dirt. There's no way anybody will come for at least a week and maybe longer, maybe 10 days. I don't think it would be good to go that long without water. I can't get you to drink because I think you'll choke, so, he repeated, shrugging, drawing a big zero in the dirt. I don't know what to do. He threw the stick down in exasperation. It hit the ground harder than he meant, then bounced and skipped into Derek's briefcase. Brian saw it as if for the first time. He'd forgotten about it in the crisis and went to it. What have you got in here? It was not locked, and he opened it with the two sliding thumb releases on either end of the handle edge. Inside there were spiral notebooks. They weren't anything special, the kind with ruled lines and the twisted wire holding the edge, and each of them was numbered. He opened number 1. Arrived, he read aloud. Brian demanded that we leave all the gear in the plane or it would ruin the whole experiment. Oh, yes, Brian thought. I did that. Oh, God, I did that, didn't I? I stuck my little foot down and dug in and got stubborn and set all this up. Oh.
So just thinking about semantics or how we choose to write or read text. So this is just minor. However, notice that this is in italics. In this case, because it is a story, and typically this formatting is used when the author themselves want to show that the person is in their head. Okay, so they're not talking to anyone particular. It's just kind of their thoughts out loud. So this is him processing that information in his head as he goes to read it.
Food and shelter and a gun and all the things I didn't think we'd need to make this easier. I admire his ethics. He finished reading the first day. He put the notebook down. You do, admire me, the guy who made us lose all that gear? He felt like he was crying and decided not to read any more of the notebooks. He started to close the briefcase and saw that there was a folding accordion-style section that collapsed back into the lid. There was something in the section. He pulled out a folded paper. When he opened it, he saw that it was the map. The same map they had looked at with Brian's mother. He saw the lake, saw where they had circled it with her, showing where they would be, how located it looked, how easy to see and find and locate. Derek had 2 copies of the map, and he'd left one with Brian's mother, so you can always tell right where we are.
All right, so I don't know why.
Map, and he left one with Brian's mother.
All right, so at this point, he has now discovered the map, and it's almost like a lifeline, right? We have this whole idea that this map might save them. Now, from what you know from 6th grade geography, how would a map or finding a map at this point help me to survive? Why would a map be so important for me at this point of a crisis? Why would I be happy to find a map right now? What does that mean for Brian and Derek? Either join me live or write it in the comment box. Why is it important? Why is this map so important a discovery at this point? So we're trying to figure out, why is discovering a map at this point important? What are your thoughts? Okay, definitely gives us some direction. If you could have discovered anything in that briefcase, what would you have wanted to discover? Would it have been a map or something else? What would that other item you wish you could, Brian, or if it were you, could have discovered at this point? What would be more useful than a map? I'll say like a flare gun, right? That would be my example. That you could just shoot up in the air at night, maybe, in the event that somebody's flying by, and you could shoot it up to signal for help, because it can be seen far off in the distance. So I'll say a flare gun. If there were anything else in that briefcase. What else, if you could have had discovered anything in that briefcase, what would you have wanted it to be? A loaded gun? What are you going to do with a loaded gun? We haven't gotten attacked by any animals at this point. This book is much calmer than Hatchet. He hasn't been attacked. Like he hasn't been attacked by a moose. Now in the 3rd book, he gets attacked a lot more than he got attacked in Hatchet, but not in this one. So Brian's winner you might like, in the event that he had never escaped the woods. All right, let's go ahead and continue. So his mother, Brian remembers sitting there, his mother smiling, all her questions answered, all her doubts gone, and now look at them. Derek had bought the other map and kept it when Brian dug his heels in and told him to send everything but the radio back. And in some relief, Brian had spread the map gratefully on the back of the briefcase, thinking that it would help. But now he shook his head and started to fold it. What difference did it make if he knew where they were? It wouldn't help them, right? Something to wake him up. Okay, some food or eat the friend in the last minute. Oh my goodness, like our cannibalist story. All right, so
you can always tell right where we are.
All right, so just thinking about chapter 13 itself. Uh-oh. My PowerPoint is scrambled. This happens sometimes. We'll let it unscramble. So thinking about chapter 13, we're there we go. Yep. Oh. So how many days did Brian determine it would take them to be rescued? And why might that be too long of a wait for Derek? So in the very beginning of this chapter, we opened up with this discussion around, if they waited for help, it would be a problem. Why would it be a problem? How long was the wait, and why might it be a problem if they waited for somebody to come rescue them? Why wasn't help going to come back for them no time soon? And I like your responses, Torian and Timothy and Aaliyah. Thank you, Jelani, as well. You all have been great participants today. Right. He's unable to drink and he's unable to eat. So waiting for 7 to 10 days is a very long time to go without food or water. It would then lead to him possibly dying due to dehydration and lack of nutrients, as well as he's unable to feed Derek. He choked on water alone. I mean, think about if he tried to feed him food or, tried to move his jaw so that he could chew it. He still wouldn't be able to swallow it. He couldn't even swallow liquid. All right. So that's that. Let us look at chapter 14 because I wanted to make sure that I got both chapters in with you guys so you wouldn't have to read tomorrow. You would just then have to write the letter home as if you were Brian. Okay, so let's look at chapter 14 real quick. So I think we're on page 10 of our packet. We started on page 8. This one's short as well. This one is only 3 minutes.
He had noticed it before, of course, when they went over the map of his house when they had first landed. But in the largeness of the country shown on the map, the massive forest the map showed, the river was a small thing, and he had negated it. It wound out the bottom of the lake, the southern end, and headed southeast down into the lakes below, and was lost, and he had not followed it except to note the name, the Necktie River. Isn't that a funny name, Sawyer had said. Derek had laughed. There are lakes named Eunice or Bootsock. There are so many lakes and rivers, the original map makers just made up names as they went. The person drawing the map was probably wearing a tie and thought it would make a good name. Many of them aren't named at all, just numbered. The Necktie River, Brian saw, led south, down, and drew his eyes away from the lake. The map was laid out in square 5,000-meter grids, 5-kilometer squares, and he saw that in some places the river wound back almost on itself inside the same 5,000 square meters. But in other places it ran straight for a considerable distance, and he followed it, through smaller lakes and what he thought must be swamps, through the darker green portions that meant heavier forest. It kept going south to the edge of the map where it was folded, and he unfolded the next section and spread it in the sun. He did not know why the river drew him, pulled at it. Then halfway through the second page he saw it. The river had grown all along, gotten wider so that it made a respectable blue cut across the map, and where it made a large bend, cutting back nearly straight east, there was a small circle drawn and the words, Brannock Trading Post. Leading away from Brannock's post, there was a double line heading down into the southwest. When he found the symbol for the double line on the map's legend, he saw that it stood for an improved gravel road. There would be people there. Right there on the map at Brannock's Trading Post, there would be people. They wouldn't have a road or name the place or make it a dot on the map unless there were people there. A trading post would have people, which Brian thought doesn't mean a thing. All right, so at this point, we at least have some hope going, that if we follow Brannock's, we follow down Necktie River over to Brannock's Trading Post, that when we get there, we might be able to survive. Thank you for joining us. But we might be able to survive if we can get to that trading post. The question becomes, you all tell me, it's not just Brian trying to survive on his own. We also have Derek. And we know that Derek can't move because, once again, he's paralyzed. Would you leave Derek or would you take him with you in order to go down the river to try and get help at Brannock Trading Post? What would you do? Would you leave Derek or would you take him with you? And tell me why. What are the benefits of taking him? What are the problems with leaving him? What would you do? Would you leave him? Would you take him? And you can join me live if you want, if it's easier than typing it. You would just say your response real quick, and then I would kick you out. You gonna leave him, Torian? Man. Anybody else? You gonna leave Brian or take him with you? I guess, Torian, I'm just curious. You think he would survive on his own if you left him? Leave him? Lord, y'all gonna leave him? Do y'all think he's gonna survive? I mean, you don't think he might run into some dangers? Oh, because he made him go back there. So you feel like, hey, you brought this on yourself. Okay. Okay. I mean, but if we leave him, what are some of the, problems that he runs into? Man, y'all said leave him. That's crazy. Y'all gonna leave this man behind. Okay, yeah, he can't really move as quickly as he needs to. Animals, yep. Okay.
I like y'all thinking. You're definitely thinking and making predictions and inferences in the right direction. So let's go ahead and finish this.
That Brennan's trading post, he was here. Yet he couldn't take his
Those
eyes off
things
the
are going to come
spot.
up.
It was there, on the same night, just there. And he refolded the map so it would show the lake where they were and the trading post at the same time. He used his fingers to make a divider and measured it straight down, but it didn't mean anything.
Man,
Then he remembered that the grid stood for 5 kilometers each, and when he counted the number of grids between the lake and Brannock's, he came up with about 16 squares. So how far is that, he said to Derek. 5 times 16, maybe 80, 85 kilometers? But that was straight, in a straight line, southeast. The river was nowhere near straight, looping back and forth and actually flowing slightly north, back along itself at one point. He started counting, measuring the river as it turned through each 5-kilometer square, marking each 10 kilometers in the dirt with a line through it, and the next set of 10. It was involved and took him some time, but finally he was done. He counted them. 150 kilometers, he said. 1.6 kilometers to a mile, just under 100 miles. He looked at Derek, who did not move, who made no sign. There are people just under 100 miles from here, but what good did that do? Here it is. I could leave you and try to follow the river out and bring help back, which he thought sounded insane. They were animals. They would come, and if they thought Derek was dead, he was defenseless. They might attack him and eat him, even small things, ants, bugs. I can't leave you.
All right, so this goes and points out this whole idea that, you all were right, that if we leave him, he's defenseless. And if he's defenseless and animals come, they're pretty much going to attack him. Even something as small as an ant or the mosquitoes would go to town on Derek if he's just laying there and there's nothing to protect him. And it's not like Brian can leave him a fire behind, to keep the mosquitoes and things away, because we know two things could happen. One, you could start a forest fire if it, blows out of control. Two, it could rain. The rain could put the fire out. Or three, it could just, run out of wood and the fire would dissipate itself. So in that case, we couldn't. I think that's funny that you said you would use him as a human shield, Aaliyah and Timothy. And you don't really care as long as you're good. This brings in the other side of it, though, right? Like, we're trying to think about how Brian is developing. Like, maybe, in the beginning, when we read Hatchet, he wanted so much to have someone else with him there. And now, in this case, he doesn't really want anyone there, but he has Derek there. And now Derek is about to be a hindrance, and he now realizes, I can't leave you. So now we are at this situation, or this, fork in the road. If you can't leave him, Brian, then what are you going to do? Because now Derek is going to provide more problems.
Brian looked at the map again. It was there. The answer was there. Brannock's trading post was the answer, and the river was the answer, but he didn't see how. He couldn't leave Derek. He couldn't leave Derek. What if he took Derek with him? He said it aloud. What if we went out together? On the face of it, it sounded like madness. All a man in a coma nearly 100 miles out of the wilderness on the river. You could say that, but there was a lot of difference between saying it and doing it. How could he? The river. If he had a boat or a raft. If he made a raft and put Derek on the raft, there might be a way he could make the run and take Derek out, get him to the trading post and to help. And even as he said it, he knew it was crazy. 100 miles on the wilderness river with a raft hauling a grown man would be nothing but dead weight. Was impossible. He would have dropped it, except that he looked up from the map and saw the truth then. Looked up and saw Derek with his eyes half open and not seeing, awake but not truly living, the minutes of his life moving past, and Brian knew that he really didn't have any choice. If he stayed, Derek would die of thirst in 2, perhaps 3 days, well before the week or 10 days that had passed before the pilot came looking to see what happened. If he stayed, Derek would die. If he made the run, took Derek down the river, at least there was a chance. He had no choice.
You said eat him, Timothy? He doesn't need to eat him. It's not like he's, in need of hunger or in need of food, because, at this point, he knows how to hunt. He knows how to get food. Remember, they had gathered fish before this, so they had already been eating. The crazy part about this is, I don't know if you all have ever tried to lift like your sibling out of a bed, but like when somebody's sleeping, not moving, and you go to try to lift them up and move them, like it's called dead weight. And like their body just seems 10 times heavier than it would if it were a little bit mobile. So imagine that we were trying to lift a grown man from a hangar down into the river. Like, he still has to get this man onto a raft or a boat, which he also still has to build, right? So these are the new problems that we have run into. Like, these are the new issues that now, Brian is going to face. And he was asking for it. He should have just been happy when there were no problems. And he started complaining about tension. Now Brian has to decide whether he's going to leave there or get him to go. And we already know that he's taking him with him. He feels like he has no choice. You already told me this, that leaving Derek meant he'd be subject to attacks by wild animals, We already said leaving him that he could die and no one would know. And you said if he left Derek, he might not be able to find him again, which is what I want to throw in. Like if we leave him, like if we left and came back, like how would we know that we're in the right place? He's not that good at navigating around, the woods, especially if he has to go 100 miles down the river and then tell the people, yeah, so I left this man named Derek, like up by the way. He's under this little lean-in, this little crew, and he's in there, and he's paralyzed in a coma. He should still be there. I mean, I think I left him there about 3 days ago. Hopefully the animals didn't get him and, he's not dehydrated. Eat him. Timothy, we can't eat him. We got food. All right. So let's add to our story map here, right? So this point, as we talked about character development, we know that he values life, right? This is why he can't eat him. He can't eat him because he values human life. So he is showing us that he is compassionate. Okay. Now, if we were to summarize our chapters, both 13 and 14, and writing a multi-chapter summary, we would still be able to use our somebody wanted but so strategy if we wanted to, instead of 5 W's. Remember, I like to flip-flop between the two to provide you options. So we know that Brian wanted to help Derek survive, ultimately, right? But Derek is paralyzed. He cannot eat or drink or use the bathroom on his own. So Brian cannot leave him or the animals will get him. And we're not eating him. We're not eating him. So Brian decided he must just take him with him and use the map as a guide down the river, right? So if we were to wrap this up and wrap up the discussion that we've had today using some of the responses that you all have given, then we would be able to, and the outline we've been using, we would be able to arrive at this summary. And this summary isn't in your packet. It's just more so that we can recap the readings that we've done. So in chapters 13 and 14, Brian struggles with keeping Derek alive. Unfortunately, Derek is unable to feed himself and use the restroom without support. Therefore, Brian has to step in and help. Due to Derek radioing that they were okay prior to the thunderstorm, no one will know they are in need of help for at least a week. Without knowledge of what more to do, Brian decides it's time to move on down the river before it's too late. And we now know that this is what is called a cliffhanger. It is when an author leaves you hanging, literally, like over the idea of, what a cliff is and the idea of just dangling yourself over it. We don't know what is going to happen. We don't know what is to come. But the suspense itself makes you want to read more. And that is the point of creating a cliffhanger in the middle of a book like this. Okay. Just so you know, we are about 45% done with the book. So 2 more weeks and we will be done, guys. So keep up the good work. You give him a diaper. How are you going to give him a diaper? He would have to, diaper. Y'all are funny. You can't give him a diaper. He would have to make him a diaper. It's bad enough he got to wipe his behind and, help him pee, clean him up. All right. So today we read both chapters 13 and 14. We answered the questions that were related to 13 and 14 that are in your packet. We added to our visual story map that we're just keeping track of online, not in your packet. And we were able to look at a multi-chapter summary. Okay. Your next steps, just to make sure that you are keeping abreast. We have done Monday's work. We have done Tuesday's work, Wednesday's work, Thursday's work. The last thing you all have is a letter home. So your homework for tonight and before we come back together on Tuesday is to write a letter as if you are Brian, to his mom explaining what's happened. Okay, so you're going to write a letter as if you were Brian home to his mom as if you were him and explaining what has happened. And you do have space for that in your packet. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in today. Be sure to take pictures of your work and submit it. Or you can submit it on Canvas, just let me know, or you can just send it to me via text. Thank you for joining me. I enjoyed our time together, and I shall see you next class. Enjoy the rest of your day.